Hey, did you know that Two Girls Shooting the Shit is on Instagram and Facebook? We'd love to hear your feedback, episode suggestions, or just chat with you about life. So follow, comment, and share.
But I went and paid a visit to her parents a couple years back, and we were talking, and the conversation leads to one thing. And her mom's like, "Oh, what are you doing for work?" And I'm like, "Oh, I work in tech now." And she's like, "Oh, you must be one of the few Black people there." And I was just like, "That's a really odd thing to say, but yes, actually, I am." And then she's like, "Oh, but you were never really that anyway, so it's okay."
Woo woo. Hey girl. Oh shoot. I didn't even see that. Got your headband on.
How are you, Mo?
I'm good. I'm good. It looks good. And we have a special guest today.
Yay!
Hey, y'all.
Good friend Adriele Parker. Adriele.
Dang. Are we doing that? Are we just putting last names out?
Oh yeah.
Okay. It's out there anyways.
I can bleep it. Okay.
I don't care.
Okay.
I'm very meta on everything, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it feels like a Miss America speech. All right, well, let's see here. I am a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant or thought partner, as I like to think of it, as well as a career coach. I primarily work with mid-level professionals of color, mostly Black women, and I work to help them just kind of identify the next chapter of their lives and figure out what steps they need to get there. In terms of the DEI work, it spans the gamut. It can be some of anything. I started off working with tech clients, but now I work with everyone from food and retail to beverage to nonprofit to you name it. And so I spend most of my time doing strategy work and talking to leaders on how they can be more inclusive and equitable.
Nice. Damn.
I know.
Well, you know.
Well, yeah, I just do.
I just do all of it
day to day.
All right. So anyway, I'm just
right. Well, that's
moving right along.
That didn't even sound right.
Yeah, good for you.
That's a perfect segue. I'm just kidding.
Oh goodness.
So Adriele, we've talked a lot of times about like crabs in a barrel and just just intra-racial issues that go on within the community. Emily and I, we've had this issue, with the whole mixed bachelor thing, biracial bachelor. And so what is the state of the United States when it comes to intraracial?
Can I just interject real quick? I have a question. Can we define crabs in a barrel for anybody who may not understand what that concept is? Just to kind of put it out there.
Oh, did you want me to?
Anybody?
I mean, I don't have a textbook definition, but when I think about crabs in a barrel, it's exactly what you kind of picture, right? You have a bunch of crabs in a barrel and all of them are trying to essentially climb out, right? Reach the top.
Right.
And so they're willing to climb over each other, pinch the next one, pull each other down. Exactly. So the same concept we're just thinking about in terms of Mo and I talk mostly about Black people and often more specifically Black women. So
what was the question?
Yeah, what was the question?
Intra. I know. I just do it. Intraracial issues, the status of intraracial issues, right?
Oh goodness. I mean, there's so many layers to it, right? I mean, I think because we've all been kind of stuck at home, there's been a lot more time spent on social, without a doubt. And I think we've seen a lot more conversations happening there where people are just reflecting on what that means, what interracial relationships even look like, or what that even means. I've seen people trying to define crabs in a barrel even, or talking a lot about, we talk about this all the time, scarcity mindset, right? What that means and what that looks like. And I've had more and more conversations recently with people about that. So I think there's more visibility into some of those interracial dynamics, if you will.
We were just talking about Married to the Medicine and how these are all successful people. They're all doing well. They're all thriving. Why can't they just get along? It's like, why do I have to one up you? Why do I have to think about something that you did 20 years ago and bring it up and like hold it in my back pocket to bring it up at the most opportune moment. Like, why is it like that? Like, it's just, it's frustrating. And it seems like that's a theme, you know, you can go to, I mean, it's not just Black women, it's all over reality TV and things like that.
For sure. I mean, I think if we're taking the race aspect away, there's a lot of layers to just this idea of being very individualistic in America or in the US. But when it comes to race specifically, if we're talking about Black people, or I'll speak more so on African Americans because that's my background, I think there's just that generational trauma and expectation. And at least growing up, I know myself and the people, other Black women that I grew up with, we were always told, like, you got to be better than the next. Like, you got to grind, you got to grind. Doesn't matter if that person looks like you or has a similar background. It's about you and where you're getting to, right? And I think people carry that into adulthood and don't realize that you don't need to take that approach. I always, kind of compare it to bread in a bread store, like, or in a grocery store, right? Like, you go into a grocery store, you're like, ooh, today I want English muffins. The next week you might want multigrain. The week after that, you might want some tortillas. You might buy all three sometimes, right? The point is there's room for all types of bread. And it's the same concept when it comes to Black women, Black people, humans in general. Like, we can all be doing similar things, but have our own approach to it. And it doesn't mean that you have to, going back to the crabs in a barrel comparison, pull anybody down or climb over anybody to get there.
I mean, that sounds good to say, but when you think about it, it's just sad that, like, I feel like with you two, I have that kind of friendship. And with my friends, I've intentionally made sure that that's the case, but it's not always been the case. And Emily and I did a podcast earlier where we kind of talked about first coming into race and things like that. And one of the things that I experienced that I talk about was just like bullying from my own people. Well, you would say, well, that makes sense. They're your own people, so of course they would bully you. But it was just odd because the bullying was that I was too smart. And so, I was kind of, and it never made sense to me. I was always wondering who told you that was okay to think of yourself like that.
Right. I think that's a huge problem. I was watching last night. Kamal Bell has a show.
Yeah.
And last night it was about the lack of Black people in STEM and STEM positions or whatever. And so he went to Morehouse, he went to a handful of colleges and talked to the people that were in the STEM programs there. And a lot of them had the same response. It was like, we're safe to be smart here. We're safe to practice STEM, to be nerds, to sit there and like really get into our like, figuring out math in their free time, whatever, nerds do or whatever. But it's funny. It's not funny. It's interesting. And I don't quite understand why that's been internalized, that's not a trait that Black people can have. I think it's just maybe, again, generational, like you said, of just being told you're less than, you're unintelligent, you're lazy, or whatever the stereotypes, whatever the put downs have been. But it was really cool because they had a lot of programs for high school kids, and it gave them a place to see people that look like them in these positions and successful. And it was kind of showing an avenue, like, you can do this, and it's not something to be made fun of. You're safe here to be whoever you want to be and to achieve what you want to achieve. And this is a path that you can go, you don't have to go play basketball or whatever is expected of you. You can go this path, and we're proof of it. So I was really into that show last night. I got to figure out what the heck it was called, but it was good.
Now I want to check it out.
Right.
I think what you kind of touched on, though, like that expectation of what you can and can't do is kind of one of the things that we see, right? Like, kind of similar to you, Mo, I was bullied back in my neighborhood. So I lived in the inner city in Ohio, but I went to a private school. So when I was in my neighborhood at home, everybody looked like me. Went to the private school, I was one of maybe two, right? And over time, I became what many people in my neighborhood would say was articulate, right? So the kids would be like, oh, you little Oreo, why are you speaking so proper? And I'm like, because I'm speaking English, right? Means that I am a white person, right? And it was just it took me so long to understand like what they were trying to say or why they felt that way. And I think, when you have certain limitations and there are certain expectations for you as a Black person, it's hard to envision anything beyond what's obtainable in your near vicinity, right? So a lot of them, their parents were perhaps selling drugs or, blue collar jobs. And so that was it. Like they didn't see anything beyond that. It's like, okay, here are the few options that I have. And there's also this need or a perceived need for fast money. So there are so many layers to it. I just think about it and I don't know, like we could go on for some hours on this one, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you were talking about fast money, for instance, just generational wealth and like you were saying, not knowing until you know. I know for me, I had no idea about finances. That wasn't something that I had modeled. And, I thought just people were lucky and got money, that's what, that's what I thought, and so like, oh, some people were born with it. Some people came to the city with $5 in their pocket and made a way, like these kinds of stories. So I had no real way of knowing how to make money, how to keep it, how to grow it, invest, and all of those different things. And that's something I think, I don't know the statistic off of the top of my head, but it's like Black women are the number one consumer. So we're spending. What do you think it's going to take for us to get from being, the top spenders to the top investors?
Education. Because people don't know what they don't know, right? Like when if you asked me some years back what I thought investing meant, I would have probably been like a savings account and maybe playing the lottery, because that's what I grew up. Everybody in my neighborhood played the lottery. Like, you hit that money, like, hey, you're winning. That's the investment right there. But now I know, like, there are stocks, different types of stocks. There's, I've learned more about 401k and the control you can have over that. Seed investing, like there are all these layers, but if you don't know, you don't know, right? And so I think what's really going to change that is just education and knowledge sharing and people being willing to be open-minded and not just focus again on that fast money idea. Like you might have to put aside, $50, $100 and let it sit there for a couple of years to really see some true investment. But again, education.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because just culturally, there's some things like language, for instance. I was thinking about that when you were talking, how when you're talking to a Black person, a lot of times they'll be like, where do you stay? Versus like, where do you live? Because staying is transitory, like transient. You're not going to be in that place for a long period of time. And so just little things like that are so baked into the culture that we don't even think about it.
Education. I never thought about that.
Yeah, like
language matters.
Yeah. Education, I feel like it needs to start with kids, like with the STEM, that should include financial literacy and helping these kids to break these generational curses. Like, I feel like in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, we're going to get reparations one day, but we're in reality, what can we do with the hand we've been dealt to improve?
For sure. So many, it makes me think of, it was just in 2019, I went back home and did this like panel discussion at a local library just around the corner from where I grew up. And there were these kids there and they were just asking questions about what we do. And I was explaining to them what diversity, equity, inclusion was. And they were just like, what is that? And I broke it down to them, but they were just like, why would I do that when I could just be, a YouTube person or a doctor or something like that? And I'm like, well, you could do it and make as much, if not more, than a YouTube person or a doctor if you really know what you're doing, right? But because they don't know, they don't have this knowledge of these careers, they just don't know.
Yeah. And I feel like that gets into the issues with, like you said, you don't know. So people who do hit the lotto or become famous or successful at an early age, there's nobody there to groom them. There's just people there they're a product. And so, bless you, you get these kids coming in and then they're all of a sudden have access to everything a kid would want. You have all people, you have all of the money, you have all the material things, and you're going to live your childhood dreams because you are a child. And
right.
Perpetuated by the culture. And so we get into this like materialism where we are spending money, but we're not investing money. And there's like that cycle of wealth. And I don't even know what it is for the Black American community, but it's like most communities will give back to their community. They spend in their communities, but we spend outside. And so it's just a lot to think about, and it hurts my head.
Same.
But like we were talking about earlier, what, like crabs in a barrel, like what's something we could do I feel like people like Issa Rae, I'm trying to think who else. There aren't that many are kind of promoting unity with Black women and like showing that we are all kinds. Like we're not a monolith. We can be like, we had someone on before who was like, oh yeah, I like rock music. That has nothing to do with your race, especially considering Black people invented it. So it's a kind of, again, where you're taking away from us. It's like, we don't have a culture. And yes, we don't have like a specific culture. I feel like we do now, like Black America is a culture. Maybe it's a,
I think there are layers to it, because I was having this conversation with a client recently and they were like, we want to do this campaign for Black culture. And I was like, well, what is Black culture? We're not monolithic, right? Like there are so many different variations of Black, just as there are different variations of Asian or Hispanic, Latinx or Latina or whatever you choose to identify, right? Like, how do you create a product or something for a singular identity that is not actually singular, right? I don't know. I wish I had the answer. I'm still working towards that. Maybe I'll figure it out before I retire from DEI, but probably not, right? But to what you were saying before, what were you saying before, Mel? You were talking about something else. No, that I really wanted to touch on. Now I got
about the financial literacy, or
no, not financial literacy.
Crabs in a barrel. How do we stop that?
Yeah, how do we stop
Yeah,
it?
how do you, yes, that question. How do you stop it? And I think it goes back to just people role modeling. Like I had a conversation last week. I like to network a lot and try to do it as much as possible with other Black women who are doing the same work that I'm doing. And a lot of times I encounter people that are kind of standoffish. Like I'll just randomly kind of cold call or send them a note on LinkedIn and be like, hey, I've been following you. I love your posts, or I love what you're doing. Can we just chat for a few minutes? I'm just curious. And some people are very open and welcome to that. And I've made some good connections, but other people, you can just tell they're like, what do you want? Like, what do you want from me? I'm like, I literally want nothing other than to just say, hey, I see you. Like, if you're feeling like I'm feeling, like, I just want to be, another resource to you. And I think, this person that I connected with last week, she was very standoffish at first. And then as we started talking, she realized like, okay, you don't actually want anything. This is just like a friendly, like, hey, another Black woman sees you and wants to get to know you. She even sent me a note today to be like, oh my gosh, our convo was so good. It made my day. And I was like, I needed that today because I was having a rough day. But it's just those small, like little things that I think over time, like my hope is that she'll pay it forward, right? Like she'll do that to somebody else and give them that outlet. And I think that's kind of what we need. Like, I think it's one thing to see celebrities doing it, but I still personally don't see myself in people like even Issa Rae. Maybe when she was doing Awkward Black Girl, I could be like, okay, that's relatable. Now it's Issa Rae. Like, you are a goddess. Like, we all know you.
I'm like 10 years ago. 10
girl.
Years ago,
yeah, exactly. I'm like, now she feels like an untouchable person. So I'm like, I think we need to see more just kind of everyday people taking action and showing that, we can build those relationships. And that goes into another layer of trauma, which is like, don't have everybody up in your business, right? So you may not actually tell people.
Move in secret. Move
in real G's move in silence like lasagna, right? Like, no, put it out there so people know it's okay for us to be vulnerable with each other and to love each other. And it just, like, I compliment random Black women when I'm walking. I'm like, hey girl, love your outfit. And they're kind of like, oh yeah, thank you.
Right? They feel good.
It's to do that,
Yeah.
So, but growing up, I didn't know to do that. I was told like, that's your competition kind of thing. Like, you don't need to compliment her. Worry about yourself. So I get it. It just gets passed on.
Yeah, I try to psychoanalyze because I wonder.
Girl.
I wonder about it because like growing up, I had a mix of friends, but for the earlier part of my life, I had mostly white friends. And I wonder, it's like, were they so nice to me because they knew I wasn't a threat or anything? Or, like I start to think about those kinds of things that I never really thought about before. They could have we also could have just genuinely liked me, but, it's just weird to think about like, oh, maybe that could have been.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some possibility to that, right? Where I've definitely felt like the kind of safe Black friend, or even now in my work, sometimes I feel like some of my clients choose me because I'm the safe Black person, right? I'm still pretty blunt. I'm not going to be rude to anybody, but I don't think they identify me or stereotype me as the angry Black woman. And so I come off as safe. right?
Yeah. One of the good ones.
Yes,
Ooh-wee.
one of the good ones. Yes, yes. I remember a couple of years ago, I was home and visited a friend of mine who was one of the first white friends whose homes I visited. And it's really interesting, like back home there, where I grew up, I said, early on, I was in the inner city, and just maybe steps away, about a 5-minute drive, this person that I was friends with lived in this really wealthy neighborhood that just kind of was like drop dead in the hood. Like around it was straight up hood. But you get into this section and there's just all these beautiful mansions. And so her house was probably one of the first white homes that I went to. And I'd never seen anything like it. Like I walked in and I got lost in her house. I was like, I don't know how you can navigate back to your bedroom. I didn't have that problem at my house. But I went and paid a visit to her parents a couple years back, and we were talking, and the conversation leads to one thing, and her mom's like, oh, what are you doing for work? And I'm like, oh, I work in tech now. And she's like, oh, you must be one of the few Black people there. And I was just like, that's a really odd thing to say, but yes, actually I am. And then she's like, oh, but you were never really that anyway, so it's okay. And I was just like,
what? Never really that. What is that?
Standing in your house with a whole Afro puff right now. What do you it was just so awkward and just, yeah. So to my point, like, I feel like that right there just told me she felt like I was a safe Black kid to allow in her home and let her kids be around so they could be quote unquote diverse.
Yeah.
Growing up Black in America.
Black in America. It stinks because we kind of carry on the devil's work. And what I mean by that is like the egotistical behavior, the jealousy, and something I wanted to mention too is like hypervigilance. That's what I thought about when you talked about the people who are afraid when you approach them, and I feel that way too. Like people are like, "What are you're trying to get something from me? Like, what are you trying to do?" It's like, I'm just spreading love. Like, I don't want anything from you. Like,
right?
It's just odd, and it's rare that I've connected with Black women, which sounds so weird because I am a Black woman.
It's not, though. I can relate to that. I mean, I can count on one hand, like my closest Black women friends, like, and I wish I could say, not that I need an endless roster of friends, but it's taken a long time to even build those relationships. Like, I feel very similar to you in that way. Like throughout college, throughout all of my life, I always had very diverse friends. And again, just felt like I was kind of the safe Black person.
I like it that I have so many friends from all over the place, but really having it, like in the past few years, more Black friends, it really has changed like my self-esteem, my self-confidence, my understanding of myself. Some things I thought maybe I was living alone, I find out that's a shared experience. So just even little things and like having people who want to uplift you and who you can uplift and support and have a healthy environment. It kind of, I think that's what helped me kind of heal from codependency, because I'm not dealing with that kind of low self-worth and feeling like, oh, as a Black woman, I'm not valued. So, my voice doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. And so I think there is a benefit to it for sure, but how to get it at this age, like I'm not going to join a sorority. I have like meetups.
You can though.
I think you can.
Yeah, you can. There are meetups, there are volunteers. Like I've done some of that before. It takes so much time.
Yeah. For me, like I said, I'm more of a one-on-one person at this point in my life. So if I just happen to come across somebody interesting, I'll drop them a note and be like, hey, you look fun. You look interesting. You want to be my friend?
Right. And they're all hyper vigilant.
I have no shame. Yeah, no. And they are, right. And I, like I said, I probably would have been the same a few years back where I came to this realization.
Yeah, but yeah, you got to keep going. And that's what I do too. I just continue to talk to people, continue to be friendly. One thing I do hate is sometimes people project their image of what they think you should be. So if you're like, it should be an angry Black woman or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not the case. Like some people will be ready to start something. And I'm like, come on, people, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not here for it. I don't really care.
Yeah, it's unfortunate in a lot of ways. I think also society, like the stereotypes that society creates for Black women or any kind of marginalized population, cannot speak tonight, people start to internalize, right? You kind of start to, you have to fight off the beliefs. Like you recognize like, this is what society has created for me, but you definitely have those kind of subconscious thoughts every now and then, like where you're kind of, it's called in the DEI world, we call it stereotype threat, where you're trying to avoid fulfilling a stereotype. So you're in a, you know, if I'm in a room full of white executives, even now, sometimes I'll be like, oh, don't say that because they'll think you're the angry Black woman. And then I'm like, I actually don't care. I already,
yeah, I'm at that stage.
And I'm also just being honest with you, right? But consciously, I'm at that stage, but subconsciously, I still have those unconscious thoughts creep in every now and then. I have to check myself very quickly. But it's just a product of my environment over the years, and just that image that society puts out there. Like even in movies or you watching something on TV, there's that angry Black woman. I was on a Amazon Prime binge yesterday, just watching a bunch of Black movies, and just the number of like angry Black women in some of those movies. I was just like, but why? We're not monolithic, right? We come in all shapes, sizes, have different interests. I remember when I first like met another Black girl who liked Pokemon cards when I was younger. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was just so hyped, but I didn't know anybody else like that. I just thought I was weird and like out of place and didn't belong, right? So yeah.
I didn't think I was weird. I thought I was fine until they told me I was weird, and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah, no, people had to start telling me that I was weird, right? Yeah. Like the kids in my neighborhood would call me Oreo, or like when I was jamming out to NSYNC, they'd be like, oh, you're just a little valley girl. And I'm like, no, I just like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. And just as I like Boys to Men and everybody else like it, I didn't discriminate, like that. So
yeah. Emily, you quiet over there. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, my experience is different. I feel like I wasn't accepted because I'm biracial by either side. So I'm not having the same connection to what you guys are saying, because it was never, I didn't fit anywhere. So there was no expectation of me other than you're not in this group and you're not in this group. So I had a different experience. So I'm just listening and taking it in, because it's.
I think there's still some overlap there. I mean, Mo and I are just two people sharing our stories, but I've definitely heard stories of other Black women that are like, well, I just never felt like I fit in, even like in their family settings, they felt out of place, or when they went to school, or when they just stepped outside, just because they had a different perspective from other people. So
definitely there's this human desire for conformity. I don't get it.
Yeah.
What's it to you? Like I always say, what's it to you? What's the end game? Like what's the point?
I think it makes it simple. It makes it simple for people too, I feel like, is if all of this type of person does this, then I can just be like, well, that's what that is. So I can move on to, you don't have to take the time to get to know everybody individually and formulate like your own opinions about stuff. So, I mean, I think it's laziness. I don't know.
It's the human, it's the human brain, honestly, right? Like what you were just saying, like we naturally categorize things, and it's how we move so quickly, right? Like if you were to take some of the approaches that we take to stereotyping or categorizing people, we do the same thing with objects, right? Like I don't think about, if I'm going to grab a mug or a glass of water, I just kind of naturally do it. Like I feel thirsty, I'm going to do it. Like I don't, another unconscious thought, I don't think about breathing. It just happens because I have to do it as a human, right? I got to inhale, I got to exhale, but I'm not sitting here like, unless I'm in yoga, right? Right. So it's just human nature to start to categorize things and try to move as quickly as possible. And we just unfortunately take that same approach to humans and fail to realize the implications that come with that.
But see, that's where I feel like as humans, we have the capacity not to do that. And that's the higher, and that's when you're stepping into the higher consciousness and
being
it's just not a priority for everybody to do that though. For some, especially those on the receiving end of these types of judgments and, categorizations and stuff like that, it's probably more important to us. But for those that are able to so quickly and thoughtlessly categorize people and move about their life without any, repercussions, they don't care.
They don't care until they feel it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny because I think I mentioned this before on the podcast, but that's something that I've experienced. It's like when people are so stuck, and I thought about it, 'cause, one of the 4 agreements is don't take things personally. And it's like, kind of hurts my head because it's like, is it personal or is it not when people just invade my space and act as if I don't exist in that space? And so it could be a sidewalk, it could be anywhere, in line, jumping in line, just random things. And it's like, what do they see? These people who do this, like, what do they see Black people as? Like, is it a racial thing? Is it a selfish person thing? Like, what is this? And so maybe I just overanalyze.
I think it's hard. I think it's hard to, when those situations come up. I'm thinking of myself. I was in the store the other day and a white woman got in line right in front of me, and I was standing there. It was a long line. So it was weird that she would just pick right in front of me to hop in. She could have gotten behind me, like, and I started thinking those thoughts. I was like, why did she do that? And I was like, excuse me, because I was kind of like, who does that, right? Yeah. And she turned around and looked at me and was kind of dismissive about it. And it could be race, and I'm not the type of person to be like, oh, it's because I'm Black and
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
But it could be it. No, I didn't say that. But in my head, I'm like, was that it? Is she just having a bad day? Does she just not care? Is she just rude? Like, who knows what it is? But
when it happens,
but just again with that privilege, like, that's something that's always going to pop up in my head. Whereas maybe if I was a white woman, I wouldn't think, is it because I'm a white? Obviously. Did she do that because she's dismissive of me as a white woman? No, so, but I don't like people cutting in line.
Yeah, and I feel like
that's rude.
It happens disproportionately. So then it makes me wonder, it's like, oh, so you're just dismissing me like I don't exist because this is a pattern,
Yeah, I have that. I've asked my white friends, I'm like, has this happened to you? And they say it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
I just had exactly what you were describing. I did a Trader Joe's run. I was all excited, like getting my new products. And I can't tell you the amount of times that and it happened specifically with white women. They literally just walked in front of me or this one woman literally stood in front of me while I'm looking at an aisle, like items, 2 seconds away from like about to grab something and just cut in front of me. Right. I'm at the produce, somebody reaches across me. First of all, it's COVID. So why are you
back up, right? Let's just back up.
I'm just like, I don't even want to be outside, but here I am. And it's just like, what do you think when that happens to you for so long over time by the same people, right? Or what Mo was saying, the sidewalk, like walking down the sidewalk, I've been to the point where someone's literally just going to walk into me if I don't step over, because it's clear they're not going to step to the side. And that's frustrating.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's the world we live in. Where'd Mo go? I just see
she just gets
MVP.
up and leaves. Yep. Oh, she's like BRB and she'll just walk away.
Oh goodness. I cannot. I sent Mo a tweet earlier today. I don't know if you saw it, but this person posted on Twitter and she was like, has anyone ever seen this on a job application? And she sent a screenshot, and on the application, the first question was ethnicity, and there was a drop down. And then the next thing after she selected Black or African American, the next question was complexion. And there was a drop down with types of complexions from type 1 to type 6. The first one, type 1, says light dash pale white. Type 2 is white dash fair. And it goes on from there to type 6, which is very dark brown to Black. And everybody, I saw that
for a job application.
Was that a joke?
Was it real? No, it's real.
I feel like, we have HR backgrounds, Mo. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or just we were I think it was in our group text about the toaster settings.
Yes.
That there was I don't know if it was a talk show, whoever it was, but they were describing Black woman based on toaster settings. Like I'm cool with a Halle Berry, but I couldn't get with I don't even know who
Serena or Venus
the person referred to. Oh, Serena Williams. Yeah.
Oh, was that a result?
Leave my girl alone.
Makeup debacle.
Serena. No,
I don't know what happened. What happened with her in makeup? Did somebody mess her makeup up, or what? Like what do you mean?
Yeah, so she had posted a photo, was it last week or something, where she was wearing some makeup, and it appeared that her face was much lighter than the rest of her body, and people were just going in, and eventually I think they bullied her to take it down. Yeah, so I wasn't sure if that was.
So it didn't make it.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she left one up with her
on Insta. Where did she?
Yeah, and so it's just like she has this long blonde hair. And her face.
There's that thing ashy. Again you were asking about the blonde hair, because I remember you were saying like in our unapologetically Black episode, you were
Mhm.
saying like for a while you had questions about whether people like, you know, famous people were wearing blonde hair for a reason, or like what
Mhm.
was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yep, that's the picture.
It's just bad. I feel like it's a bad makeup job.
He got his hand on her booty though. I love
As
it.
he should.
I love them. They're cute.
They
I don't
are.
care. They're cute. They're so cute.
Also, I'm a huge fan of the baby doll that she created for her daughter, Lil Quay Quay.
Uh-huh.
What?
Lil Quay Quay. Yeah, she has a whole, Lil Quay Quay has a whole like Instagram and
Oh, is that the
product.
thing that dances?
Oh.
Yeah, that's the doll.
one-
So there's an actual doll, and she found like an animator to like animate Quay
Yeah.
Quay and make videos. It's super cute. Super cute.
Yeah, I always say it looks like that baby looks like Samuel L. Jackson, the doll.
Only you, Mo. Only you. Oh yeah, so right, that company, right? I'm not going to name them because I don't want to be that messy today, but it's an AI company, and they issued a note to say that they noticed that people had flagged and called out one of their onboarding questions that involved race. They want to apologize for the way the question was phrased and add context to why the question was asked. Their goal is to help eliminate bias and make AI that works for everyone. The optional question on skin tone is used to ensure diverse data sets are included in the collection and annotation used to train computer vision algorithms.
Womp, womp, womp.
So what was the job for?
Was it a model? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
was it
to, like,
otherwise?
censor?
I don't think
You know, like-
so.
what would it matter? It's like, is it to test the sensor, to test
Yeah, let me go back because I think this person is like an engineer or something. So I don't think it was like
they wouldn't be the
I'm submitting my
subject.
pictures. Right, exactly. No, this person's a digital content specialist and social media strategist. So I don't think and she's actively looking for social media marketing and creative content roles. So she definitely wasn't applying to be like a model for them.
Does that drop down appear for any other racial
Excellent
selection?
question.
Like if you put like Asian Pacific Islander, would they ask like, are you Korean or are you Filipino? You know, like the different skin tone.
Right.
Like I wonder.
Ooh, now I want to see.
Right now, I'm like, let me
if it's
navigate over
not,
here.
right? Because if it's not, then we really have a problem. Well, I mean, we have a problem anyways. That doesn't. Oh, that feels yucky. I don't like that.
Right,
That doesn't feel good.
And just that message, I'm like, you could have done better. Like,
Or how is it even relevant? That's why I feel like it's not relevant to the job that you're hiring for.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Unless you're hiring
care?
my face, like you're asking
Right.
for my photos as part of this. Yeah, it does not make sense. And I
Wow.
doubt they are asking for people to upload their photos unless they are for this job.
Then you don't need me to do the drop down. Just look at my picture.
Right.
I could see once they're hired, maybe, and they want to volunteer to be a part of some testing or something like that. But
I don't know. But colorism is very real. It's still a thing. It's super unfortunate.
yeah, Amanda Sills she gave a good explanation of colorism, and she talked about how white supremacy is the overlying problem, and it's a systemic problem, and then we have a subset of that is colorism.
Right.
So we have the infighting with the colorism, but really the problem is placing that value on closeness to whiteness, as proximity to whiteness. Honestly, I don't know how that's going to change, or if it's going to change, like what it takes.
Yeah.
That concept is pervasive though. It's all over the world.
All over the world, yeah.
So it's not just here and amongst African American people.
Oh yeah.
It's everywhere. You know, and I think some of it historically, and this is like another piece or layer, was just if you were outside working, you had darker skin. If you were inside and part of the aristocracy, or you had money, you were fair, you weren't, exposed to the elements. So there's that layer. And then you add what's going on here in the United States with races and slavery and all of that, and the mixing.
It's interesting that you mentioned that now that I think about it, because in the continent of Africa, I don't know which specific countries, but this is sub-Saharan Africa. I don't have the numbers. I should look them up, but men are going from Asian countries, I think primarily China, into these countries and getting the women pregnant, and they get access to property, or some kind of whole thing that's going on. And right?
Clutching my pearls. Wait a minute.
Why are we seeing disposable around the globe?
What do you mean? So they're impregnating African women,
and then they get benefits from that locality where they
by having
a child. The whole thing. Let me look it up, pull it up, because I was like, is this real? I thought it was fake.
That's like some conquering other people kind of Middle Ages kind of weird crusades type stuff, or I don't know.
It's almost like a erasure happening
in African women by fleeting Chinese workers. Oh, this is fleeting.
What? So then what are they doing? Are they raping these women? No, and then just bounce it? Like, is it like some sex exploitation?
Oh, I don't know. Like sex work? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is so interesting. It says their migration is part of agreements with African governments to allow the Chinese to build infrastructure and develop the continent while deepening bilateral relations. Oh,
like that sounds weird, right? It just seems like something
is happening.
Like the Black women around the world were just disposable. Like what?
And then it says, however, the relations have gone beyond governments as the Chinese workers who are temporary migrants sow their seeds in African soil by fathering unwanted children with young African women and girls who have no means to fend for themselves. Oh, child. Oh, my skin just crawled. I wasn't ready for that.
I got goosebumps.
Wow. So globally, there's something
that's terrifying.
Like you said, there are categories of people, and so we're talking about our category of our existence, which is just like, wait, why millions of Chinese men are staying single?
And don't get sidetracked. Don't go down the rabbit hole, though. Colorism is very real. I cannot. Colorism is very real. It's not just an American thing. I mean, we can look at history, because American history is really not that deep in comparison to other places, right? Like we can look at the caste system in India. If you're looking for something more modern, pretty much the entire Asian beauty industry shows you that colorism is very prominent. So it's everywhere. And, if we're looking at the US, the civil rights movement set us up for these ideas of like model minorities and who's, closer to white identity, and who's, if we're almost essentially placing rank on underrepresented groups. And that continues today. And again, going back to that idea of internalizing what society puts out there, that's oppression. That is literally oppression. And how do we fix it? I don't know.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It is the gift that keeps on giving. For real.
Dang.
I know. I gotta now, oh my gosh, now I gotta research this more. I didn't know this was a thing.
Right? I did, and then I forgot about it. I did, and I forgot about it. Oof. But it's just like these things that happen, and just even families, like looking at families and like the different colors. I know, like in like we talked about this in another episode, but like just different colors, and people like being from the South and Louisiana and things like that. And there is a caste system. I could never, as nappy as this is, my mom would have to sit.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Oh, that's a good thing to cover. I don't think we touched on
hair.
It's just hair. Yeah, the idea of hair. I told Mo this a couple months ago. I was visiting home, and I have twists right now, but my hair was out in my fro. Which is a new thing for me. I just started wearing my fro out probably at the start of quarantine.
It's big and beautiful.
It's big and beautiful, but I never knew. I never embraced it, right? I was always covering it, wearing quote unquote protective styles, which weren't protecting a thing. They were tearing my hair up. I had my fro out, and I was home, and one of my family members was like, "What? You going to get your hair done?" And I was like, I did it already. I was like, I washed it and I moisturized it, and it is nice and healthy right now, and this is it. And they were just kind of like, "Oh, okay." But then when I got my hair straightened, which I only do like once a year at this point, really just to get my ends trimmed. Oh my gosh, send pictures. Look how long your hair is. It's beautiful. It's down your back. Oh my God, I got to send this picture to your aunt. I got to tell this person. I'm like, how are we still there? How are we still there? And I don't know how to like have that conversation with older generations. And I've tried to have it a couple of times, but how do you have that conversation, have it stick? And I'm at a point where I just kind of laugh it off, but stuff like that used to really bother me and hurt me. And it was a reason why I never really wore my natural hair, and why I was constantly looking for the next wig or weave or crochet braid or sew in or relaxers, which thank goodness I stopped using. But yeah, it makes me think of all the other people that aren't good with themselves and that are still battling that acceptance of hair.
Yes, that's how I feel like, not even hair, but like colorism. That's how I feel about the girl on, what's her name, Paige, on Married at First Sight.
Oh, yes.
Where there's reality TV, Paige is married to Chris, who it seems to have a preference for a certain complexion of woman. I think he even said it. I don't remember, but she's not his type. So she's a dark, beautiful, shapely.
Oh, she's beautiful.
And got a body, yada.
Yes,
and a brain.
Dark-skinned woman. So he had that attraction. So it is, again, like that animalization of the dark-skinned woman. And he obviously is attracted to her, but I think, is it maybe the social clout?
I think so. Right?
Because
like
it doesn't make any sense.
Find an Instagram model, but it's like, why isn't she an Instagram model? Because I would see her and be like, yes, you need a
I was like, whoa.
Right? And even it seemed like his family was accepting of her. Exactly, daddy was into it. But I think it's just him and what he's experienced and what he thinks he needs to prove to other people, right?
That is just crazy. And we've talked about that on our dating shows. How a lot of times dating is just proving to other people versus doing what you actually want, which is, we're not even gonna go. That's a whole nother episode.
Whole other conversation.
Black women and dating. Oof, no.
Not
today.
I don't know if I want to explore that any day, honestly.
The toil.
Yeah, I'll just be over here in my exotic bubble.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Exotic. We got Serena Williams down here, or was it Venus? Emily, the person who said you look like.
He just said you look like one of those sisters who play tennis.
And what is it? What is
and
it?
It was said
like that. Were you wearing a tennis skirt and other tennis holding a rack? Like, I don't know.
And I was like, what sisters? Like, I knew what he was trying to say, because he started the date off with, I don't like hip hop. I don't listen to it. And I was like, okay, good for you. What's that got to do with me?
Yeah.
Those are like those microaggressions. Like,
And was this person Black?
No, he was straight from Ireland.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's just an expectation situation, because I wasn't trying to put light skin misleading pictures or something on my Plenty of Fish or whatever it was. It was me. I was a lot darker than too, but it was not what he was expecting. And he made that very clear.
Sorry, sir, that I
wait, what's happened? So you are darker than?
Yeah, I used to, like, I would go tan and get darker, like to have darker, like.
That's so shallow.
I was too dark for him, I guess. I don't know.
But that's a question. Like, that's something that I think about, and I think, is it shallow or not? Like, is it is a preference discrimination? Like, is a preference shallow?
I don't think so. But I think if you're already in a situation where we have agreed to go have dinner and we're sitting across the table, let's have dinner. Like, I see you, and no, who knows? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what dating is like now with the, all the swiping and all that. No. Wait,
you're not missing anything.
Yeah.
And it's that trophy life, that I'm looking for this thing to up my value. This doesn't up my value and my perception. So next, but like you said, just be polite, even if you keep it short. Like,
I think the problem comes when it's okay to have preferences. We all have our preferences. We're human, and you like what you like. You're attracted to who you're attracted to. But the problem comes when you start to try to place hierarchy on someone based on their color or their hair texture or whatever else, right? At the end of the day, we're all humans, so there should be a value by default, right?
Right.
Like, that's what I say.
And there isn't, it seems like. So
there is intrinsic value. That's what we have, and I think that's what needs to be taught to everybody, but especially in the Black community, in the Black American U.S. community that from the moment you were born, you had value and you still have value. You know, it's like that, like they always say, that dollar bill, you know, it's still a dollar. You wrinkle it up, still a dollar. You kick it and spit on it, it's still a dollar. You still have that value. So it's
hard to get to that place though, right? Because again, if you grow up and you're growing up with people telling you your value,
you got to
right?
be better than the rest.
When do you switch over and start to identify, like, I don't have to wait for someone to tell me what I'm worth. I spent a lot of time in therapy talking about worthiness. Like, I thought my worth was based on, you know, when I was younger, getting good grades or having people tell me I did a great job, or, you know, tackling every project I could. And like, that's not worth, right? And it shouldn't be how I see myself being worthy. But it took a long time to unlearn that. But again, growing up, that was it. Like, oh, you didn't get a good grade? Ugh, terrible.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean?
I'm not going there, but that was totally my experience too. And it was just like, oh, okay, so my value is extrinsic. It's based on my performance.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, wow, like how do you, as a human, like meeting people who have that, you know, just always knew they had that intrinsic value, you know, and were raised that way. It's kind of interesting to see because it opens the door for so many things in the future, not living in the past or anything, but
living their lives for themselves.
And I used to
like,
I think even when I first met you, I was still like in the process of this journey to spiritual awareness. And I would be like, the audacity, like, how dare this person ask for something? How dare you? And it's just,
that was you, girl.
and it's like, you damn right you asked. Your needs need to be met. You know, you know your worth. You set your boundaries. Yes, exactly. And it's just a different way of thinking. And like, yes, we deserve to take up space. I think, I don't know if it was with you, Emily, or with you, Adriele, but people would always be like, you whisper. And I'm a loud person. Anybody who knows me knows I do not whisper unless I'm trying to intentionally. But this would be just talking to people like, speak up, I can't hear you. And I realized that I was trying to make myself smaller in my voice, you know. And so just little things like that. Yeah, I feel inspired. I need to start some kind of a kid group. I feel like I don't know what to do with the adults, but
listen, at some point the adults got to start working it out for themselves. But I think there's certainly space to save the babies early on and teach them early on.
Amen. Teach the children.
Takes a village.
Any closing thoughts?
I don't know. Just be empathetic. Love people. Give people space. Let people make mistakes. You know, like there's so many different layers. We could go on and on about this.
Yeah. And not everyone's out to get you. Some people are trying to make new friends. And
right.
If you see me in your DMs or anything, say hi, you know?
Right. Exactly. I do my best. Like if people reach out to me, I always try to respond, even if I'm late, or offer time, even if it's 10, 15 minutes, because I know what it's like. I've got some horror stories of like me reaching out, especially to other Black women, hoping they would be mentors, or even not even mentor, just give me advice or answer a question, and they just turn their backs on me.
Or that you realize they're faking it and they can't really offer you any kind of advice.
Or they thought, or they felt threatened, like I was going to come in and take their spot, crabs in a barrel.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm like, you know what? I thought I could learn from you, right?
Oh, that was sad.
I know, it's true though. You know me, I'm a nerd. I like to learn from people.
I could learn from you.
I just want some love.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.